Welcome to the Fantasy Wildcard. I'm your host, Kev. You can follow me on Twitter at Dynasty_GOAT. With me tonight, as always, we've got my co-host, Matt, who you can follow on Twitter at MattFFDynasty. Good evening, Matt.
Evening, Kev. How are you doing?
Well, as you can see, football's coming home. Not that football. We are talking about different football on this show, but I am rocking the red England top and the red Fantasy Wildcard hat. So yeah, I heard that you had a bit of sunburn, so I wanted to match your red face.
That's it. You're making me and Ali look a little bit better now. I've got that red on.
And it's also scorching in my room, so I'm sure as the show gets further into it, I'll be looking redder and redder. And also alongside me and Matt, there is our other co-host Ali, who you can follow at FF Dynasty Grill. Good evening, Grill. How are you?
Evening, Kev. Evening, Matt. Yeah, really good, thanks. Just a bit hot and flustered. It's about 35 degrees, so it feels like it down here. So
you can tell we're British. We're not used to this warm weather, are we? One or 2 days, and we're struggling.
They'll complain about anything else, won't
we? We will indeed. And plus, you're a bit further south than us, aren't you, Ali? So it's a bit hotter because you're closer to the equator, and you've had a few nights on the bowls.
I have, yeah. I've been busy. It's been crazy busy, actually. But yeah, it's nice to get outside for a change, so can't complain.
Yeah. Indeed, you have. So I guess anybody that's used to us on a Tuesday, it's your fault that we're doing it on a Thursday this week. Apologies for that, but now we're just kidding. It's all good. It's his first show since the streamathon that we did on May the 22nd, and I'll just add a little bit more about the streamathon. Just thank you so much for your support with the streamathon. We had a target of £1,000 to raise for Mind Charity, and I'm delighted to announce that we smashed the target, raising £1,127, which, with the match funding that I'm able to get from my work, we'll end up having at least £1,500 we've raised in total. So a massive thank you to everybody that donated, everyone that interacted with us, shared the event, commented, got involved. Honestly, I can say it's one of the proudest moments in my life, and I'm sure the other guys will agree with that as well. And also, we're releasing the streamathon shows in a podcast format. So the 16 hours will be split into 16 shows, and we'll release these 4 shows a week over the 4 weeks in June, on top of the current shows like this one. So I know it is a dead part of the season for a lot of people, but we're absolutely firing out that content to sort of fill the gap and help you win your drafts and for the Dynasty leagues into the future. So yeah, I think it's a great way to recap every NFL team. We had some fantastic guests on the streamathon. Please check out the podcasts and also follow the guests we had on as well. Some fantastic content. And the podcasts have already started going out this week. So thank you so much to everyone that's listened so far. And I also want to thank 5 Yard Rush, who kindly donated free spots in the Fantasy Football Challenge Cup that they run. And what we did was we give eligibility to anybody that donated to the streamathon. So I'm pleased to announce the 3 winners of the random draw are Gary Atkinson, Mark Jones, and Andrew Mackins. We will be in touch to hook you up with the 5 Yard Rush team and get you places in the Fantasy Football Challenge Cup. So thank you very much. Cheers again for donating. And you've got a little prize at the end of that. You get to compete with fine best ball players like myself in that format. Are you guys in the Fantasy Football Challenge Cup?
Certainly, yeah.
I'm not now, sadly.
Right, Matt. Well, we'll have to get you in it.
Yeah.
So it's simple as let's get the wild card guys to the final.
I got to the last 8 last year, so it can't be that.
Not on to brag, but
no, I love that. It'd be great if we could get the wild card guys deep into the Fantasy Football Challenge Cup, and then we can say for definite it's coming home. Lovely. Cricket. So on today's show, we'll be talking you through how to attack your Dynasty startups from various different draft spots early in the round, the middle, and also late in the round. And we're going to give you our ideal Dynasty startups based on real life Dynasty Superflex ADP. So it's going to be Superflex Dynasty startup with no tight end premium. We're also going to throw in the 3rd round reversal, and rookies are included in this draft. So We're going to have Ali taking the early picks, starting 1 to 4. We've got Matt in the middle, 5 to 8, and then myself picking late, 9 to 12. And we're going to split into round 1. Then we're going to do rounds 2 to 5, 6 to 10, and then 11 onwards to give you a flavour of different areas within the draft. And we'll kick off with round 1 with the Dynasty Gorilla himself. Ali, kick it off.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, we're drafting a Superflex draft. So for me, it's all about quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are king. That's my motto. And the top 4 picks is all about getting that top tier elite quarterback. So for me, there's 4 people in play. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and Dak Prescott. They're my top 4. So I'm happy to take any one of those. If I've got the number 1 pick, which I'm going for here, I'm going to smash.
Play it safe.
I just love that how basically we give the option of like taking a pick in the first 4, and Ali took pick 1. I love that.
I'm taking the magician set, Patrick Mahomes. It's the boring pick, but on a 3rd round reversal, I've got a long time between my next 2 picks, so I need to smash this pick here. So I'm going Patrick Mahomes. He feels like the safest pick in the draft. I feel good about it, even though I've got a long wait. So yeah, my strategy is to hopefully to get these 2 quarterbacks the first couple of rounds, and then hit on the running backs. There's still really good running back depth in round 3 and 4. So that's my ideal target. So I'm looking in recent drafts, people like Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson have been dropping like flies into round 2. So I'm hoping that one of them might be available for my 2nd round pick.
Love how you teed that up, Ali. Love it.
So now I can put my feet up and I can watch you 2 work your magic for your picks.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that about you're obviously gonna target the quarterbacks. But I'm interested to know, would you ever consider the idea of moving back if you were 101, 102, 103, 104? Would you be happy to move back later on in the 1st round and try and get a bit more equity? Yeah,
absolutely, 100%. I think I'd probably be the first person in the chat to say 101 on the board. come and get it. I'm definitely happy to trade back a few picks. The top sort of 8 places are all decent quarterbacks. So I'm happy to trade back a bit and pick up an extra 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounder, something like that. So yeah, I'm definitely happy with that. Not happy about moving out of the 1st round up, completely, because of getting that quarterback so important. And the trouble is everyone's trying to trade back these days. So actually there's not that many trade partners to find. But yeah, that's definitely a tactic that I try and go for, is to trade back, even if it means giving up Pat Mahomes.
In the Dynasty drafts that you're in, how often do you see guys actually being able to execute a trade back from in those top 4 spots?
It's difficult. I think I'm seeing it a bit less now. I read a lot of strategies saying the best way is actually to trade up now, because people are so desperate to trade back, they're giving up more value that way. So it's interesting, but yeah, certainly you see a lot of messages in the chat saying, picks on the board, come and get it, sort of thing.
How about you're in a lot of Dynasty leagues, aren't you? You've had a few startups.
I have. I've got a bit giddy this off-season. Yeah, I think, like you said, I think especially the 101, that seems nearly impossible, really, to trade back without getting what you call value. Otherwise, like what Ali said, it's more a case try and move up, and you could probably get it cheaper than what you really should do. But I just think because, like Ali said, these top 4, probably top 5 guys for me, they're all pretty similar in the potential. I think they could all be QB1. So, I mean, if you're sitting at the 104, 105, is there any need really to trade up and get Mahomes? I don't think there is, and I think people they don't want to pay up, do they, to make a move that could be, well, next to no gain.
Yeah, I think people are definitely getting smarter. And imagine if you had the 101 and you could trade to the 104. That's ideal, really. I'd also be trying to get them to switch to 2nd round picks as well, and maybe get a bit on top rather than it just being a 2 for 2.
Yeah,
and you move back a bit and forward a bit. If you could get a little extra, that's absolute banging. Because it is fair to say that like Mahomes and the 4th QB are in the same tier, but there is that little bit of value where Mahomes is clearly the QB1. I've not seen anywhere or anyone not have him as QB1. I think if people have got him not QB1, they're just clickbaiting, really, I think. Watch out for those guys. There's a lot of bad advice on Twitter at the moment as well. I've seen a lot of horrendous takes. I've not posted for a while, so it's not me.
Just from my burners.
Just from my burners. Dynasty Pingu. So yeah, Ollie, I just want to get your thoughts on. Obviously, you're picking in the first 4 picks in this, but in a third round reversal, it's a little bit different. Just to explain to the listeners that maybe haven't come across third round reversal, it's exactly what it sounds like. Rather than going snake all the way through, the early round 2 picks are also the early round 3 picks, and then it starts snaking again. So it does mean if you're picking early in round 1, you're picking late in round 2, and then you're picking late in round 3 as well. So it's very important you don't mess up. So just thinking about that, Ali, I just want to get your thoughts on if being in the first 4 is the worst spot in the draft from a third round reversal. I forgot what it was then. So I guess if you've got your choice of any picks in the draft, would you be going in the first 4, or would you look to be in a different spot in a third round reversal?
Certainly, it's a tough debate. Obviously, getting Mahomes to not getting Mahomes is massive, but my favourite spot has always been the back of the draft, where you find yourself tonight, Kev, is to get that first pick of the second and third rounds. I think is massive. There's such good value there. You always see really good players drop there. I think it gives you more flexibility as well. If you're going early in round 1, you've got to smash quarterback, whereas you might see later it's not necessarily the case. If there's an absolute stud player at the back of the first round, and a lot of the quarterbacks in your top tier are taken, then you can go another position. So I'll probably just favour the back of the draft, but I'm not going to complain being at the front.
I'm feeling a bit of pressure now being at the back of this one. We'll have to see how we do it. I won't spoil it, but I looked at all 3 of our teams afterwards, and I thought, yeah, mine's probably the worst. So we'll just have to let the audience decide, actually.
Best spot, worst result. Sounds right for you,
So yeah, we'll just have to get your thoughts. Give us your feedback. If we've done this draft and mine is the best, then please do post. And if it's not, then please keep your comments to yourself. So we'll move on to the next part in round 1. This is the middle of round 1 with yourself, Matt.
Yeah, so obviously in the middle of the first round, I tend to have a top 5 quarterbacks. So I've got Mahomes, Murray, Allen, Dak, and Lamar. So I'm just basically sat here praying that one of these guys, obviously if you've got the 105, you know you're going to get one of these guys. But if you're in the 6, 7, 8 range, you're just praying that one of these guys falls to you. If not, then it's probably when I start leaning more towards the running back. So your McCaffreys, Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, those guys. I have them just slightly above Herbert. I can definitely be tempted into grabbing Herbert. It depends what kind of mood I'm in on the day. But those 4 guys, they're after the top 5 quarterbacks for me. I just think that if you get into the second, third round, I think you can get quarterbacks that have equally got just as good as upside as Burrow, Lawrence. They're the kind of guys that you're going to be getting after Justin Herbert. So if I'm looking at those guys, I'm probably going to tend to fade the quarterback position. But in this case, I'm going to go for Lamar Jackson. He's got the overall ADP of 6, so it's kind of in the middle of where you put me in this first round. And I'm just happy to grab that young quarterback. Obviously, he's got the rushing upside, which gives that really solid floor, which I think's basically ideal when it comes to your QB1. You want that safe guy, and I think that's what Lamar Jackson is. So yeah, happy to get Lamar in the middle of the first round.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting with Lamar Jackson. Obviously, he's in your top 5, and it looks like a tier on its own. And then for me, it's a top 4 with Lamar at the top of tier 2. So I just want to get your thoughts on if you're worried about losing the value by taking a QB this early when you could get a similar guy to Lamar in round 2. I'm thinking more like the running back side. Potentially, you've got a McCaffrey who's a top tier guy that's maybe more valuable than Lamar. Or is there no way that you can bypass QB at this spot, risking the QB run?
Well, like I say, I've got Lamar in that top tier. So if it is down to Lamar Jackson, it's going to be tough for me to pass up on him because I don't feel like I am losing that value with Lamar Jackson. He's got that QB1 potential. He was the QB1 in 2019. So I mean, it feels safe, as I say. He's a safe quarterback to take. So if any of those guys there, I'm taking him. But then after that, that's when I think you want to get that elite running back, as you say. There's them quarterbacks in the second, third round that you can grab. So. Yeah, I just want those top 5 quarterbacks, and if not, then running back.
Did you see that video that Ali shared earlier on our group chat?
I did.
Yeah. Shed a bit of light on it for the audience, Ali.
Yeah, go on.
I think a lot of people have seen it now. It's the one that the Ravens posted out. Which receiver was he hitting?
Watkins, I think. Yeah,
Watkins. That's it. Sam Watkins. And the ball is anything but a perfect spiral. It's horrendous, wobbling all over the place.
It were a touchdown, weren't it? Obviously, they're in training. They've been a touchdown. I mean, the game long's out of pictures. It doesn't matter what it looked like. As long as it's a touchdown, you've got your 6 points. That's all you care about. Or your 4 points, whatever league you're in. So
he'd have ran for that anyway.
Don't try and shoot me down there.
We had to get it in there. I think as well, like, obviously, we are talking in jest about Lamar Jackson, but I think it's more his rushing upside, really, that why people are so high on him. It's not the fact that we think he's going to be a 35 touchdown passer with 5,000 yards like the other guys. So
he's always going to be a top runner, isn't he? That's what it is. And I think even if he takes just a bit of a step forward now, he's got the added weapons in Bateman, Watkins, and what have you, and Wallace. I think, why can't he take a step forward and be top quarterback again?
I'm actually going to side with you here, Matt, and he's in my tier 1 as number 5. So just a quick question: if you didn't have the number 5 pick, say you had 6 or 7 or 8, and say the top 5 did go off the board, are you completely happy to stay and then draft that stud running back first, or would you think about potentially moving back and then picking up an extra few picks and some more draft capital?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely open for moving back. Obviously, it's tough. You know, I'm a Giants fan, so if Saquon Barkley's there, it's always hard to pass up on somebody like that. But as I say, I just think getting that added capital, I'm sure we'll go on about it a little bit later on, but in that 3rd, 4th round, there's still some top quality players. So if you can move back and get an extra pick maybe in that 3rd, 4th round, then I'm happy to do that and get another one of these young running backs.
Yeah, and I guess being in the middle as well, it doesn't really change your strategy, whether it's 3rd round reversal or a normal snake draft, because essentially in the middle, you're always in the middle anyway. You do get a slight tweak if you pick, say, I don't know, pick 8 or pick 5, you get a slight advantage. But I guess it's a similar strategy in the middle. So we'll move on to the end of the round, which Ali has touted is the best place to be. And I am taking, I'll be selecting in this part of the draft. So for me, it's a decision between quarterback and running back. Wide receiver is a position that I do fade in startups. I think the top 6 or 7 are great. But at the wide receiver position, it's the biggest supply. And plus, I think it's the easiest position to trade for as well. Maybe not the top guys, but if you need a capable guy, you can usually find that from within your leagues. Again, tight ends, it's super early. In tight end premium would be a possibility at the back of the 1st, early 2nd, but it's likely something I go for early 2nd round in a tight end premium. So QB wise, you're looking at guys like Lawrence and Russell Wilson. Running back, you're deciding between Saquon and Jonathan Taylor. Now, my preferred route to go in the first 3 rounds in this format is to have 2 QBs and 1 running back. But I do think if you take in I think if you're fading QB, it's very risky to be doing it. After the first 13 or 14, it is a mess. But on the flip side, it's really hard to bypass on stud running backs like Saquon, Jonathan Taylor. They're both in my top tier alongside Christian McCaffrey. So for the purpose of this show, I'm going to go for the running back 3 in ADP, which is Jonathan Taylor. I just want to keep it as fair as possible, really. I could have picked Trevor Lawrence at pick 9, but Jonathan Taylor, I still think it's really close between a guy like Lawrence or Jonathan Taylor, like you mentioned, Matt, before. Yeah. After those first 4, I do think that tier is quite big, and I think you're getting very similar values in round 2. Maybe a guy in round 3 if you keep listening a little bit later on. So yeah, it's very close. I'm happy with Jonathan Taylor here. Because it's third round reversal, I know I'm getting the early picks in round 2 and round 3. So yeah, Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I think you smashed the pick. So well done.
Yes. Not blown it yet.
So you say you like to go 2 quarterbacks early. So in this area, you've got quarterbacks like Joe Burrow or Lawrence or Russell Wilson. Just want to get your take on how would you rank these 3 quarterbacks, and would you consider taking 2 of these as your first 2 picks?
Yeah, so these are literally back to back to back. So it's a great question, Ali. I've got Trevor Lawrence, then Joe Burrow, and then Russell Wilson. And in terms of would I be happy taking these guys as my first 2 picks, I sure would. I think if all 3 were at the spot where I was picking, I'd actually take one of them and hope one of the other guys made it back. If it was just Wilson available, that's coming to the end of those 3. I'd probably just take the running back like Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Kev. To be honest, it is an awkward one because obviously you've got that. If you're at the back, you've got that early second round pick, so it kind of makes you feel you can go either way, don't you? You don't need to worry too much about quarterback. If you see value in a running back, I think you can still be pretty confident you're going to get one of those top quarterbacks. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from. But another question, Kev, is if it wasn't third round reversal, how much would that affect your decision? Would that make you maybe pivot to quarterback rather than a running back?
Yeah, it affects it a lot, to be honest. I think in a normal snake, you've got the 2 picks, late first, early second, and then you've got potentially 20, 24, 22 picks before your next one. And that does seem to be a hotbed for QBs. I think, like I said before, if you're getting past QB 13, 14, it's very dicey territory. You're looking at guys in that 13, 14 range like Deshaun Watson, who might sit a season, like a Jalen Hurts that's laughably being taken that high. So I think if it was a normal snake, unless there's an incredible value in round 2, like a Saquon or a Jonathan Taylor, any other running back I'm not that bothered about. It's those 2 and McCaffrey. If there's one of those there, potentially take round 2. But if not, I think you've got to be going QB at the back of round 1, early round 2 in a normal non-snake. So be sure to read the rules before you enter your draft. I've been in a draft before where it was third round reversal, and when it got to the third round, the guy picking at 211, 212 was like, "Why am I not picking next?" So make sure you read the rules, people. Right, so round 1's in the books. I think we all agree I've done the best there. So we'll move on to round 2 to 5.
Get your comments in.
Honestly, terrible. Round 2 to 5, we're back to you. We're going to go back to you, Ali. Obviously, in round 2, it will be me picking first, but in terms of the show, we'll go back to yourself to explain rounds 2 to 5.
Yeah, so I'm finally back on the clock. And just by luck, my wish has come true. And sitting there is Aaron Rodgers at the back of the second round. Which I'm absolutely delighted. So he's a smash play for me. His ADP is right back there. So I'm going to pick him every day of the week here. And just to think I could pair 2 out of the last 3 league MVPs is an insane start to the draft.
Sexy.
It is very sexy. Obviously, you've got the risk with Rodgers currently sitting out OTAs. So it's a little bit of a risk, but to get a guy with top 5 upside is really too hard to pass up. And after Rodgers, I think there's a bit of a tier break for me. So people like Tannehill and Jalen Hurts are in this next area. So I think I've got to secure Rodgers, my second quarterback, and I can really relax knowing that I've got 2 really good quarterbacks to fall back on for the next few years. Now I can really address the running back position. And there's some really good names still on the clock here. So the likes of Eckler, Dobbins, Mixon, Zeke, and Najee Harris are all in play here. So just the two big tight ends are falling in this area, but I'm happy to ignore them for now in George Kittle and Kyle Pitts. I'm definitely happy to wait my turn and take tight end later on. The other quarterbacks in play here is probably Tua, and I think we're all big fans of Tua.
Interesting.
I think it's primed for a big year in year 2. Obviously they've got an improved offense, so he was in play. But I'll take Rodgers, and then my 2 running backs that I'm going to take are Austin Eckler and Najee Harris. The other running back that was in play for me was Zeke, but then I didn't want to pair 2 older running backs together. So don't say anything about Najee Harris' age.
He's older than Zeke, isn't
he? He took Joe Burrow to prom.
Kev's favourite joke.
Oh, damn, I've used that one before.
So, yeah, I've got Eckler, the PPR machine. I think he's primed for a big year. Obviously, he had the injury last season, but he's back this year, and I think he's going to be used a lot. And I think Harris is primed for a huge workload in Pittsburgh. Obviously, they've got worries about their offensive line, but he's going to get such a workload that it's going to negate a lot of that. So yeah, now I've secured my quarterback position and my running back position, the 2 most important positions in my eyes. I think I've got a bit of a free swing in round 5. So my tactic here is to absolutely nail any guys I can see with top 12 outcomes in their range of possibilities. So I'm going to go wide receiver here, take my first wide receiver, and it's going to be someone who's so solid in Allen Robinson of the Chicago Bears. So the last 2 seasons he's finished as wide receiver 7 and wide receiver 9, and now he's potentially got a quarterback upgrade in rookie Justin Fields. So yeah, I've got a reliable wide receiver 1 to pair with my running backs and my 2 quarterbacks. And Rodgers only had 2 games last year with less than double-digit points, so I know I've got a solid, reliable wide receiver 1. So that's my first 5 pick, guys. What do you think?
Yeah, solid as always, Ali. Yeah, quality. It's interesting though that you've managed to get Mahomes, even if you're at the 104. I don't know how you pulled that one out, Ali, but you've got Patrick Mahomes. But I think it opens up a potential interesting situation. It's something you see quite often where you've got that shot of getting Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce at the end of the second. So is there any situation where you are tempted to maybe get that stack in the second round?
Yeah, so I think if it wasn't 3rd round reversal, then they would definitely be in play. But the fact is, I've got a long wait to my next pick. If I was to go for Tyreek Hill or Kelce, I really want to go for my quarterback here, quarterback or running back. So if it wasn't 3rd round reversal, absolutely, but not in this situation.
Yeah, I do love that in best ball. It just got me thinking of our good friend T Strack, who has his best. I've
been in a few best balls with Tom, and if he's got that 101, he's getting Mahomes, and I just know what's coming. So if I've got that late second, I'm sniping him. I'm getting Kelce. Yeah. I'm getting Hill. I'm not letting him have it.
I love that. To be honest, like I do think stacking's a really good idea, but you don't tend to see it that often in Dynasty. I don't think. Yeah. It's more of a best ball redraft strategy, but I think we need to get more stacks in Dynasty. Actually, I think we need to make more noise. Obviously, 3rd round reversal is tricky, like you said. I think if you're at the back of the 3rd, it's dangerous territory. You're going to be drafting Baker Mayfield as your QB too. I think if you avoid it. Not that there's anything against Baker.
No, we love Baker. But,
it's not Aaron Rodgers, though, is it?
Also, I think stacking in Dynasty is always a bit risky because you don't know how long the quarterback's going to be there, and vice versa the wide receiver. Obviously, with Mahomes and Kelce and Hill, they've had a long time together, so they're standouts. But there's a lot of quarterback wide receiver combos that don't stay together that long.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. Unless if a guy gets traded, you're then trading half your team to get that stack again. So yeah, you're probably right there. So Just want to know, obviously, you're really big on QB, but I want to know if there's any scenario where you'd swerve QB at the back of the second. What type of talent would have to drop in round 2 to catch your eye and make you bypass the QB?
So it's only going to be running back position, really. I'm not interested in taking a wide receiver this early, even if it's the wide receiver 1. So it's going to be the likes of Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara, who are actually falling towards the mid second round. So if one of them was to fall, then absolutely it'd be pretty hard to pass up on that, if I'm honest. Even in third round reversal, you're getting a stud running back like that, even though they're both getting on a little bit in age, which is why people like Jonathan Taylor's probably taken ahead of them. They're definitely in that sort of top 1 or 2 tier for me. So they'd probably be the only 2 people I would consider at that position.
One word answer: Cook or Kamara?
Cook.
How about you, Matt?
Wrong. Kamara. Kamara.
I pick Cook. So
get out.
Yeah, honestly,
stable
situation.
Get out.
But we'll pass it on to you now, Matt. We'll let you let off a bit of steam with your picks in the middle rounds 2 to 5.
Yeah, so in the first 4 rounds, I'm a little bit like Ali. I'm targeting 2 quarterbacks and 2 running backs, and then when we get to round 5, that's when I start to maybe consider getting a wide receiver, all depending on obviously how the draft board falls to you. But I just find it much easier to get those wide receivers, tight ends after the draft, so that's why I tend to lean more to the quarterbacks and running backs. So after obviously getting Jackson in round 1, it's tempting now to target those running backs. You've got guys like DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, these young running backs that everybody always desires. It's definitely tempting to get those guys, but I mentioned it a little earlier when I was talking about my round 1 pick. I think there's some quarterbacks in the second round that could easily be mid-first round picks next year. So that's why I was happy to pass up on people like Joe Burrow in round 1. So I am going to target a quarterback. At this point, I'm looking between the 2 rookie quarterbacks, so Trey Lance and Justin Fields. So I'm happy to grab my rookie QB2, and I'm going to take the potential huge upside of Trey Lance in round 2. It just gets rid of all that stress on it at quarterback. You never want to be in a Superflex league and chasing quarterbacks. I know we've just done a startup, Kevin, and I went for a different approach just to see how it went. I didn't take my first quarterback till round 3, and I was sweating buckets all the way through the next few rounds, just thinking, what am I going to do at quarterback? And it's not a fun experience. So if I do have the opportunity to do this is the way I tend to play my Dynasty startups and just get those 2 quarterbacks and just take the stress away completely. So then moving on to the 3rd and 4th round, there's still some real quality players in the 3rd and 4th round. I think this is probably why people do tend to be open to trading down, because the value that you can get in the 3rd and 4th round is incredible, really. If you look at the running backs, Aaron Jones, Zeke, Mixon, Eckler, all going to be available in the 3rd round at the current ADPs. And then also the younger guys as well. You can get people like Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Najee Harris. So just the amount of quality you can get at running back, it's understandable why people are happy to trade down or get quarterback early. So with that in mind, I'm going to go Antonio Gibson in the 3rd round. Obviously had an amazing rookie year and proved all the doubters wrong with his rushing ability. And then in the 4th round, I'm going to double up again, just showing my pure kryptonite in these young running backs, going for another young running back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I think his ADP now, he's actually undervalued. Last off season he was overvalued, but overall pick 43, it feels like a great value in the second year in this high-powered offense. So yeah, happy to get my 2 quarterbacks and 2 running backs. Then you're looking at round 5. If somebody like Calvin Ridley's there, that's when I'm starting to get a little tempted to go wide receiver. Also guys like Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson, who Ali took, those kind of guys. They're all definitely interesting, but I'm a sucker for running backs. I'm happy to admit it. If I can get a running back, I'm targeting a running back, and I think I can get a guy he's going to get plenty of opportunity in 2021, and we know how key that is in fantasy football. So I'm going David Montgomery. Now it's not the nicest pick in the world. I know, Kev, we've spoken about it a few times. Definitely not his biggest fan, but it's just that volume. I think he's got a lot of things pointing in the right direction for him. I think people are getting a bit harsh on him, just saying that he had that easy stretch of games last year and that he's not going to be able to produce again. But I'm happy to take the volume and grab a 3rd running back. So yeah, David Montgomery in the 5th round.
Yeah, I can confirm as well. I've seen one of Matt's rosters in a 1QB league, and he's got about 6 RB1s on it.
No wide receivers, but
no. I mean, I looked at it and thought, wow, that must be a team that wins the ship every year. But apparently, it's just bad luck, and it's
not even made the playoffs in the last 2 years. Absolutely disgraceful.
But yeah, I can confirm he does love running
Good
backs.
roster, bad management shit. That's what it is.
So yeah, I know that me and you, Matt, we co-own 2 of the Wildcard Dynasty leagues and teams in the recent startups we've done, and we took Chris Carson as our running back 3 in both of those. But we did have rookies that might not start early on in the season, guys like ETN and Javonte Williams in those separately. So in this scenario with Gibson and CH as established starters and less need for an immediate impact running back 3 as such, how tough was it to take a guy like David Montgomery over wide receivers such as Chris Godwin and DJ Moore?
Yeah, it was tough. Obviously, I've said I'm definitely not his biggest fan, but I just think that drop off that it's coming. You see it all the time in running backs. It's just a huge cliff when you get to a certain point with these running backs, and Montgomery feels like a solid option. And just before you get to those real drop offs in the running back position, so. Yeah, I'm happy to stick with Montgomery. He's got that. He's young. He's going to get that heavy workload. The Bears obviously as well got a lack of draft capital now after getting Fields. So it just feels like his situation's got better, I think, if anything. So yeah, happy to get Montgomery. I know we did take Carson, but you were obviously co-owning with me, so you were in my ear all the time, telling me that I had to get Carson. So yeah, I'm happy to take the running back. I think you can get wide receivers in the next few rounds that are. Obviously, they're not going to be that name that Godwin and DJ Moore, but I think there's guys that can definitely get up into that kind of ADP in a year's time. So yeah, I'm happy to wait still on wide receiver.
And I've noticed, Matt, that the oldest player on your roster that you've picked is Lamar Jackson. 24 years old. You got a load of babies. How much? How much does getting young players factor into your first 5 or 6 picks?
I think it's more position rather than draft capital that's made me go for these younger guys. I say it all the time, but when it comes to running backs, the younger the better for me. I mean, I don't want to take my chance on an older guy that can fall off that cliff at any time. When it comes to quarterbacks, obviously it's not as important, but when I went for my quarterbacks, I was going for that safe flow, somebody like Lamar Jackson with his rushing, and then potential upside with Trey Lance. It's just how it happened to be. But like you taking Rodgers, I mean, if I'm looking for that safe guy, I'm happy to take an older quarterback. I think it's just how it's worked out. And as I say, with running backs, I'm always gonna favour the younger guys.
Yeah, it's interesting that if you're young and a running back, then you're definitely in Matt's sights.
Absolutely.
So watch out. So yeah, we'll move on to me now. I'm obviously picking late in round 1, which is early round 2, early round 3, etc. And after 5 rounds in an ideal world, I want 2 quarterbacks and 3 running backs. I started with Jonathan Taylor, so I'm looking to get 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs in an ideal world over the next 4 picks. Again, I'm still happy to fade wide receiver. I think the most stable long-term asset, and they are great foundational pieces, but outside of the elite, like I mentioned before, I think they're easy to acquire. Tight end, I think if there is a value, there's potential there, but again, it's not something I'm going out of my way to overpay for. But like we've touched upon, the QB running back run at the start of drafts is real, and it's not a place you want to be short. You can find wide receivers late in start of drafts. You can't for those 2. So with going Jonathan Taylor round 1, I think the focus in round 2 and 3 has got to be QB. Round 2, it comes down to 2 guys, both in my top 10, Fields or Lance. I do favour Justin Fields slightly above Lance, but you can't really go wrong with either of those. And with it being a 3rd round reversal, it means that I'm getting the other pick in round 3. There is guys like Zeke, Dobbins and Gibson in that range. But this is a cheat code for me in the 3rd round, getting a top 12 QB. I am higher on him than most, but I think the imminent breakout is in line for Tua. It got mentioned by Ali a little bit earlier. I'm a bit mad for him, actually. He's my QB 12, but I think he can be a top 8 QB by the end of the season. I really do believe in his talent. And then moving on to the the next picks, the 4th and the 5th, it's back where I'm pivoting to running back. I would smash ETN if he is available, but in this scenario, I'm just going to play it safe with ADP in a normal to worst case scenario and take Javonte Williams as my running back 2. Again, I think this is a cheat code as well. I think he's way downboard, way farther than he needs to be because people are worried about a 28-year-old that's out of contract after the season. I think he's going to be a top 12 Dynasty running back next season, along with guys like ETN and Najee Harris. I think that's definitely possible. And then finally, round 5, could go for guys like Matt Ryan or Carson Wentz. But as you touched on, Matt, I think after the first 20, 22 running backs is a huge drop. Unsurprisingly, the guy I've took here is Chris Carson, which we took in both of our co-owned.
It shows who's making all the decisions in our co-owned team, doesn't it, Kay?
And it's actually really funny because anybody that's listened to me for longer than like the last few months, they know that I've not been a fan of Chris Carson. I've always faded him. I've always been higher on Rashad Penny. But I've changed my tune. He's got that 2-year deal. Penny looks like he's done. He's spent. I think Carson, personally, I think he'll have a top 15 season this year. Maybe even a low-end RB1 if he can stay healthy for a full 17 games. He's one of my favourite running back free targets, and I do actually think it's a great blend to have him alongside Javonte Williams because he's probably not going to start the season in a majority backfield. So to recap my first 5 rounds, you've got Jonathan Taylor, Fields and Tua, and then Javonte and Carson.
I think you got really good value there in getting Carson at the end. I think a lot of people overlook him because of his age, but like you say, with that 2-year contract on a team that wants to run the ball, then I think you're going to get sort of fringe RB1 seasons. So I think that's really good value to have him as your RB3. I think that's really good value. So it's got a quick question. That's all right.
Thank you.
You're doing well considering you got the best spot in the draft.
Hey!
Just got a quick question. So most Dynasty players now are going sort of QB and RB heavy the first 4 rounds. Is there any scenario where, say, a stud wide receiver drops to a point where you'd consider taking them? So, Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, or any of the top tier wide receivers, if they were to fall, would you consider taking them over a quarterback or a running back?
Yeah, I think the earliest I could go wide receiver would be round 5 if one of those sort of in that wide receiver 6 to 8 range, like a CD Lamb or a Jamar Chase fell into that early 5th. I'd be happy taking them there, but I do really want to start out. Like I said, I want to have 2 QBs, 3 running backs. I would sacrifice a running back for one of them. What I would consider a top tier wide receiver. I think it's important to have a plan, but also to be fluid depending on how the drafts go. For example, if let's say all the running backs went and it came to the 5th round, it'd be pointless me taking a guy like Kareem Hunt or a Michael Garrett.
Wait.
I'm not even going to respond to that one, Kev. I'm just going to completely blank it and move on to my question.
Such a horrible man.
I know. You just can't help yourself, can you? I was just interested to know, because obviously you've taken Fields and Tua as your QB1 and QB2. Do you have any concerns at all? Obviously, the 2 young guys, you could argue that Tua is unproven. We haven't seen Fields take a snap yet in the NFL. Is there any concerns at all having those as your QB1 and QB2?
I think there's a little bit of concern with Fields potentially not starting the season. So I've got to make sure that I do get a QB that's going to start straight away. It'd be no good being left to pick between Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, for example, because you have to take both really to guarantee getting the QB3. But I think having Fields and Tua, they are both unproven, but in my eyes, in my head, I think they've got a huge ceiling. They're potentially going undervalued in certain spots. Love them both as prospects as well. They're both top 10 in my sort of QB model at all time. So yeah, I think to get these 2 QBs, they're both young, they're both top 12. I'm really happy. I think on paper, you look at it, you think Tua and Fields, that's all right. But in my head, it's better than the general consensus of the general public.
Yeah, fair.
Smashing. So before we get into the second half of the show, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, SilverFX, who is a leading supplier of bespoke teamwear, including podcasts, sports clubs, universities, and schools. Choose from SilverFX's own bespoke range, modified designs, or customize your own from scratch. We at Fantasy Wildcard have our very own merchandise store, bringing you our fantastic logo branded across several quality items, including hoodies, hats, jackets, t-shirts, and shorts, plus many more. Be sure to check out SilverFX on Twitter at SilverFX_sports and their website, www.silverfx.co.uk. Thank you very much. So we'll now be moving on to discuss the rest of the startup strategy. And in this next block, we're going to look at rounds 6 to 10. And we're back to you, Ali, to kick us off.
Yeah, so having school, I've got 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, and my first wide receiver. I feel like I can take a swing at best player available right now. I've got in my head that I want to get my third quarterback, but also if there's a decent running back here before the lake dries up, before I'm reaching for, I'm not going to say his name, Matt, don't worry.
Wouldn't be a reach. I don't know what you're talking about.
So a player who's fallen in drafts, I think, because Kenyon Drake's been traded to Las Vegas, is Josh Jacobs. So he's going to be my pick here. Is my running back 3. QB was definitely in play, but I think there's a couple of guys later on I'm happy to take as my third quarterback, being so I've got Rodgers and Mahomes as my first 2. I think everybody forgets that Jacobs was the RB8 last season. It certainly didn't feel that way. So for me to get him as my running back 3, I think is represents good value. So I'm happy with that as my next pick. So now I've got 3 running backs, 2 quarterbacks and 1 wide receiver. So now it's a case of seeing what the value is, and I'm at the back of the 7th, early 8th now. So the picks here are going to be Deontay Johnson, who I absolutely love, and I'd be happy to take him as my wide receiver 1. And then it's going to be Sam Darnold, who I also think represents some upside as my quarterback 3. I think he's got pretty much a 2-year window. He could absolutely be pants, but I think he's in a much better situation. I think he's got weapons. So for me to have him as my quarterback 3, I think that I'm quite happy with that, especially with Rodgers being slightly risky. He could sit out some time. So yeah, that's my next 2 picks. The other quarterbacks in that area were people like Derek Carr, Jared Goff, and Jameis Winston. I think each of those represent a bit more riskier picks. I think Jared Goff is going to be on the Lions for a couple of years, but I think they're going to be a really bad team. Whereas I think Carolina are going to be interesting with the weapons that they've got. So yeah, now I've got my next pick. So I'm at the end of the 9th, early 10th round. So again, I'm just looking for value, people that drop to me. And I've certainly got my eye on wide receiver. I've only got 2, so I want to fill that depth up. So I'm going to select Tyler Lockett and Curtis Samuel. Now Lockett finished as the wide receiver 8, very inconsistently. Had his huge games. Also had some duds in there. But to have him as my wide receiver 3, I'm not reliant on him having them. Then week to week points. And then Curtis Samuel, who I'm getting even more excited about, to see that he's taken snaps at running back is incredibly exciting. So just to sum up, I've got my 3 quarterbacks, Mahomes, Rodgers, and Darnold. My 3 running backs is Eckler, Najee Harris, and Josh Jacobs. And I've got 4 wide receivers. So I've got Robinson, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett, and Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, I love it. Really, really strong roster. I'm quite interested by the Jacobs selection. Was that more down to not wanting to miss out on that 3rd running back and focusing on your roster construction, or do you actually believe in the talent that he could have a really solid 21 season and beyond?
So a bit of both, really. I was high on him coming out. I was always on his side when it was the question between him or Miles Sanders. I was always on Jacob's
about
side.
N'Keal Harry, that was me. Between him and N'Keal Harry, that was my downfall.
So it's a bit of all three, really. To get him as my running back 3, I'd probably be happy with my running back 2, to be honest. So yeah, he's a smash play at running back 3. Yeah, and also that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, to be honest, I've never been super high on Josh Jacobs. I've always favored him, but he does always seem to put up a big performance against me in my home league, which is really annoying. He always just seems to fall into the end zone several times. Nightmare. But yeah, I think looking at your overall roster, it's bang on. The only question I've got really is about, with Darnold and Rodgers having the same bye week this season, what's the plan for week 13? And thinking about startups in general, how much do you factor in bye weeks into your strategy, if at all?
So I think I tend to look for playoff sort of time to see if there's any buys. But really, by week 13, I'm going to know where my team is this season. So it could be a case that I can trade for a quarterback if I'm going for it this year, or I can trade away and just play. Or if I'm not competing, then I can just put a running back or something in that position. So I think if it was earlier on in the season, I'd be more concerned. But because it's week 13, I'm going to have a good idea of where I am, whether I'm making the playoffs or not. So it doesn't really concern me that it's that late.
Yeah, that's a solid answer, Ali. I thought I could trip you up there, but you've answered it really well. All I was going to say is, like thinking towards the end of last season, I remember picking up guys like Taysom Hill off waivers, or filling guys like Nick Mullins, even Chase Daniel. I think he got a start towards the end as well, didn't he? So
yeah,
you can find them. I think your options are trading, finding someone as a free agent, or worst case, it's called Superflex in it, so you can stick anyone in there really if you've got a good enough roster, which by the looks of it, you've got a pretty good roster, Ali.
There's always going to be injuries, there's going to be benchings, there's going to be some controversial moments. So there's always going to be them quarterback, that are backups at the minute that are going to be starters by week 13. So you're right in what you're saying.
Indeed. And speaking of strong rosters, we now move on to the middle guy, Matt.
Yeah, so obviously I've locked up my 2 quarterbacks and 3 running backs. So now I'm at that point, round 6, where I'm eyeing up my wide receiver 1. I do also need to consider my QB3. Obviously, I've got Trey Lance. There's a chance that he might not start week 1. So I'm also looking at picking up my QB3 in this group. Tight ends, I'm still happy to fade for now. If somebody like TJ Hawkinson, if I can get him at a fair price, he's somebody that I've got my eye on. That I'm quite high on him this year. But I just think he's likely going to go earlier. That I'm happy to grab him. I've obviously got other needs on my roster at the minute, and I value them more than I do the tight end position, to be honest. So, yeah, I'm going to start with wide receiver. You've got guys like DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Mike Evans. They've all got ADPs around this mid-60 overall, so all available. And I'm going to go Amari Cooper. Feels like a really reliable wide receiver 1. It's going to be my ideal pick because this high-powered Dallas offense, I think is a smash play as a wide receiver 1, a real solid pick. Then round 7, there's still plenty of wide receivers available. So I'm looking at guys like superstar giant wide receiver Kenny Golladay is going to be an option at this stage in the draft. But obviously I did just mention the potential QB situation that I've got. We know the value of quarterbacks; it's higher in Superflex leagues. So I'm going to play it safe, and I'm actually going to go for another Giants player. I'm not. I promise I'm not being biased, but I'm going for Daniel Jones. His ADP is QB 25, which I think is absolutely criminal. So I'm happy to grab him as my QB 3. I think he can be a solid QB 2. So to get him as my QB 3, I'm more than happy. I think the Giants they're going to bounce back next year, or at least improve. At least going to improve. We've added the weapons. I think it's make or break in it for Daniel Jones. It's potentially a risky pick, in all honesty, but I think he can make that jump. And happy to get him as my QB 3. If you don't want to go this early for QB3, you do have other options. Big Ben, Ryan Fitzpatrick, you can get them much later on in the draft. But as I say, I don't want to be risking it at quarterback when it comes to Superflex league. So happy to get Daniel Jones. Moving on to round 8, I'm going to have to go back to wide receiver. It's between Jerry Jeudy and Jalen Waddle at this point in the draft. 2 young wide receivers that have got that have got huge upside. So I've gone for Jerry Jeudy at this point. I think he had a really underrated rookie season. More than happy to get him as my wide receiver 2. Again, round 9, there's still plenty of value at wide receiver. I think at this point in your draft, it just shows why it's so hard to grab a wide receiver early when you know you're getting this kind of value later on in your drafts. There's guys like Shenault, even Odell Beckham Jr. Say what you want about him, but when he's fit and healthy, is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. So guys like that. But I've actually gone for Tyler Boyd. He's kind of in the middle. He's not that young guy, and he's not that older guy. But I think he's become a bit of a forgotten man in Cincinnati, obviously with getting Jamar Chase and T Higgins there. And I think he's a real solid option as my wide receiver 3. And then moving on to round 10. Now, I'm going to be honest. I would have my eye on a certain guy at this point. I'll not say his name because you'll slam me, Michael Carter. I know, Kev, we were in a startup together, and this is where I took him around 10. So as I say, I'm happy to look at running back here, but I just think there's still again plenty of upside at wide receiver, and I've got my eye on your guy actually, Kev. Terrace Marshall, I think.
Hey, get on the tennis.
I think a really solid option again. He's going to be my wide receiver 4, is it now? So could see a huge bump in value, I believe, going into next year if he does have that really strong start. So as I say, I'm at that stage in the draft now where I'm starting to think more long term guys that, I mean, it could be around 5-6 pick next year if it all goes right for him. So happy to get him at round 10.
I just Terrace Marshall, just love it. You've won the draft. No,
thank you.
No, Matt, if I'd ask you a tight end question because you're a known tight end fan, I just want to know how much you'd consider taking the earlier tight end that fell, such as Waller or Hockenson. I know you mentioned you're very high on Hockenson this season and beyond, but how many tight ends in total are you willing to target before punting the position? I know this time last year it was probably like after the first 3 that it was punting. How has it changed in the last 12 months for you?
Yeah, it's probably gone to top 5 now for me. I think it's still obviously going to be Kelsey, Kittle, Waller. I've just mentioned TJ Hockenson as well. He's definitely a guy that I'm happy to potentially get if he falls to me at the right spot. And obviously Kyle Pitts as well, who's going to be a really great young tight end. But I think they've just got to fall to the right spots for me to consider him. They're the 5 guys that I would consider. Anyone beyond that, I think I'm just completely fading the position. But if I can get Hockenson in round 7, that's where I'm definitely going to start thinking about potentially pulling the trigger. Didn't obviously want to do it in this one because I've gone for Trey Lance. I think with that in mind, I've had to consider the 3rd quarterback. But as I say, when you get into that kind of spot, that's when you can start opening up your options a little bit. So round 7, I'd be happy to get Hockenson, but just the way this one fell out that I've not been able to get him.
I think you make a good point as well, just about how if you've got a really stable start with not many guys that have got questions about playing time, you can be more risky in this stage of the draft. But like I said, if you've got a Trey Lance or a Justin Fields or a Travis Etienne, someone like that might not be getting the full workload to begin with, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself if you're taking tight ends and kickers and stuff like
that. Not sure I got that far, but
who plays in leagues with kickers anyway?
Linda might.
To be honest, I'm in a few leagues with kickers and it's awful.
I'm just generally interested in your strategy, Matt, heading into these middle rounds. So are you specifically looking to grab as many wide receivers as you can, as you went running back and quarterback early, or are you flexible? So if certain players did fall, no matter what the position was, say tight end or another running back, would you consider taking them then?
Yeah, I'm definitely still going to be flexible, even though I've obviously got need at wide receiver. But I just think with the amount of depth is at the position, I think you can afford to be more flexible. Once you've locked in your quarterbacks and running backs, it's then becoming taking the value really. As I say, you can get those solid wide receivers as late as the 7th round. You could still get your wide receiver 1. So yeah, I'm probably starting to target more value rather than need, especially if you've got those 2 solid quarterbacks and 3 solid running backs. As we just said, I think that's when you can start opening up your options.
Yeah, you've done a really good draft so far, Matt, and you as well. I'm feeling the pressure with my next.
Let's have it.
Next 5 picks. So yeah, first 5 rounds, I got 2 QBs and 3 running backs, but this is the territory to be taking wide receiver, filling out those spots. Plus, I also need a 3rd QB. In particular, with taking Fields early. So this range, it's all about gauging the sort of QB room, how it's going. I think if they're going off quicker than expected, you have to take one early in this section. But if you feel it's just going as normal, or you can get one later, you can risk it a little bit. One of my favourite guys to go for is Tom Brady in the early 6th, but I have got another QB that I do like a couple of rounds later. So we'll park that for now, and his name might have cropped up a little bit earlier on. But usually this part of the draft board, it's just like a sea of blue if you play on Sleeper, just wide receiver after wide receiver. You're just hoping that your guys are getting taken. I'm going to double tap wide receiver to begin with and go for a young Joe. The 2 highest ranked wide receivers on my board, which is T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk. I think they're both in ascending offenses. They've both got solid QBs. That hurts for me to say that about Joe Burrow. Yeah, the 8-9 turn is the spot where I'm looking to snag the QB3. So I've bypassed Brady in the early 6th, and I've gone for the 8-9 turn. He's way down ADP, especially if you play on Sleeper, but he is a priority with having Justin Fields, and it's Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's the QB3 that I do love. I know, Matt, you got him in round 13 a recent draft. It's so funny as well. Me and Rich were just before him, and I was saying to Rich, like, shall we just ruin Matt here and take Fitzpatrick?
I absolutely had my eye on him all that round, and I thought, one of these 2 buggers is going to do me.
And we both had, I think we had both had 3 QBs already, but we're thinking, shall we just do it? Because there was Matt and there was another couple of guys that had got maybe 1 QB, and we're thinking, shall we mess them up? But we played fair. We like Matt. He's a good guy most of the time.
Thanks, Kev.
Just got some bad running back takes, but
this time next year we'll see.
Fighting talk, I love it. Fitzpatrick, though, I mean, I think he can be more than a 1-year rental. People are thinking he's got 1 year, then he's done. He's late 30s. I'm not calling him Tom Brady, but this is a good team. I think the Washington team, they're going to be a contender for a few years now, and I think, why has it got to be a 1-year rental? After Fitzpatrick, though, I think it's going back to wide receiver. 2 guys I think are really undervalued that have proven it in the past is Adam Thielen and Brandon Cooks. They are older guys. They have got long-term QB question marks, but I think both of these are going to be heavily targeted. They've both been studs in the past, both been wide receiver 1s. This part of the draft, I think, it's really easy to spot the dumbest player in your league. And it's the not only the 6 to 10 range, but beyond. It's the guys that are hammering tight ends, like tight end 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. If you want to find the least smart people in your league, go and check it out. I do think as well, the running backs, it's a dead spot between that sort of 20 to 35 range. I think it's too early to be taking punts on guys like, it does hurt me to say this, Ronald Jones, like Devin Singletary's. I think some of these guys are great real life players, but it's really uncertain as to what workload they're going to have. They're probably going to have bit parts, but I think you can find guys late 30s, early 40s that are going to have bit parts that have got as much, if not more upside. So I've finished my first 10 rounds. It went Taylor, Fields, Tua, Javonte, Carson, and then Higgins, Ayuk, Fitzpatrick, Thielen, and Cooks.
Well done, Kev. You've smashed it in my eyes, especially the last two picks in round 9 and 10. I'm definitely feeling, and
Wow.
Phelan and Cooks are going to put up numbers again this year, so to get them that late is really good, especially as your wide receiver 3 and 4. It's insane. Cooks is just, I don't know why he's undervalued every single year. No matter what team he's on, he always performs as long as he's on the field. So yeah, that's crazy. But just going on wide receivers, Kev, is there any concerns that your first 2 wide receivers you've taken are not necessarily the wide receiver ones on their team? So obviously in Cincinnati you got Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd. They're both heavily involved. And then for the 49ers, you got Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, a huge part of the 49ers offense.
I'm not too concerned. I'm not really buying into it. I think the interesting thing with both these guys actually is that they were higher in the rankings earlier on in this off-season. I get why Higgins has dropped, obviously, with Jamar Chase coming in, but the Ayuk one, it seems a little bit strange because I saw a lot of places he was going sort of that 10 to 15 range, and now he seems to fall to the late teens, sometimes the 20s, and I'm not 100% sure why that's happened, if people are just thinking Kittle's back. And I do get actually that the sample size where he did perform, there was hardly any Kittle, hardly any Deebo, but I'm not a massive Deebo fan, to be honest. I think Ayuk is the wide receiver one, and until Kittle does it for 16 games, I'm still a little skeptical. I can't put him over Kelsey like some, and I think Waller's a coin flip with him. I actually think that both Higgins and Ayuk are dynasty buys. I think for different reasons. The volume's going to be there with the Bengals. I lost 100 targets to AJ Green. I think it's still going to be a bad team that's passing. And then with the 49ers, I just think that offense as a whole, that efficiency is going to improve. I can see him getting more touchdowns. Obviously, it's tough to bank on that, but I just think he's a far superior player to Deebo.
I think as a whole, the 49ers are really, really interesting. The hardest team for me to work out who's going to get what. They've obviously got the tight end position locked in, but other than that, who's going to start the season at quarterback, running back, who's going to be the running back one? I think they're all probably going to contribute. And then the wide receivers, again, it's a toss-up to me between Ayuk and Deebo. So it really is interesting, that offense. If you can nail it, then you've got such a productive offense.
Yeah, and I was just going to say as well, I know Matt picked this guy in Trey Lance, but I've had a few sneaky bets on Trey Lance to be the rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year. He's third in the betting, but I think I like him over guys like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, because I think the 49ers, if he's starting, they're potentially a 12-13 win team. And I think that if he's starting on a 13-win team as a rookie, I think he's going to win the offensive rookie of the year. Nearly said MVP then.
Yeah, I think with that offense, I think all he's got to do is, he don't even have to start week 1, does he? Even if he comes in, he could probably come in halfway through the season and still finish as the rookie of the year, just because of, as you say, this offense and how great it can be, and with what we know he can do with both running it and passing it. I think it's going to catch a lot of people's eyes. But yeah, moving on to my question that I have for you, Kev, is there any tight end at all that you'd consider at this range? If so, who and where would they have to fall for you to grab him?
Yeah, it's Waller late in the 4th, early 5th. He's going late in the 4th, but I take him early 5th. But as I touched on earlier, it's to do with having those solid veterans. If I took 4 guys at the start that were really comfortable and you knew they had job security, they weren't going to potentially start the season on the bench, that's when you can get a little bit more fruity and take a guy like Waller. But I think after guys Waller, Kittle, Kelsey, I'm not interested in taking guys at value, or even if they fall a little, I won't be taking Kyle Pitts anywhere, which he's probably going to come back in my face because I don't have him in any league, but I just think the values are crazy. Yeah, just going to say as well, it's just funny that this show, it just gets better by the week, doesn't it? We're now giving betting advice on the offensive rookie. Anyway,
you put your name to that one. Just I'm not going to put my name to that one.
Yeah, I've put my money to it as well. So it's
Let's go, Michael Carter.
Yes, that's. I didn't want to say it, Ali. But...
Don't get him started. I'll get you some odds on that.
You're like betting.
We've got a comment in the chat as well from the winner of our 5-yard competition as well, Gary Atkinson. He said Jalen Hurd season. Any thoughts on that, guys, before we move on?
Yeah, I think he's a great target late on in your drafts. I've seen him go undrafted in a lot of the startups that we've been in. I think he's got a great shot at being the wide receiver 3 on that offense. So, I mean, it's obviously not an offense that tends to have a lot of wide receivers, but I believe that Kendrick Bourne, when he was there, I think he's vacating nearly 100 targets, I think. So there's definitely an opportunity. Obviously, that was without Kittle, though, so you've got to factor that in. But yeah, I mean, I've been on the train the last 2 years, and both times he's gone down injured, so it's been a painful one. But yeah, you can't get off a train, can you, while it's in motion still? So
I completely agree. I've had him, and he's on a lot of my rosters, just sitting at the bottom, just praying that he gets healthy just for one season, so we can see what he can do. But his talent's there, and you know, I like his situation, and you just never know. So yeah. I'm not off that train just yet.
I think it is a slightly different situation to Paris Campbell in the sense that I think the 49ers have got better wide receivers than the Colts, but Paris Campbell's a guy that gets talked about a lot, and that might be a spoiler for one of our guys' sections coming up. But Jalen Hurd, similar, he's a guy that's battled injuries. He's got that potential. So, I mean, what is he costing? He's probably not even getting drafted in 20 rounds. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can't remember seeing him go in many drafts. No. So maybe it's time to get on that Jalen Hurd train. When I first saw it, I thought it said Jalen Hurts, and I wasn't even going to comment on it. But,
we're getting ready to ban him.
Yeah, we'll take that prize off him. So yeah, we're coming into the final part of the draft now. We're going to do a big section, rounds 11 to 20 now. I think rounds 11 to 20, it's focusing more on strategy than players. So we'll kick off with Ali on this one.
Yeah, so after round 11 to 20, it's all about looking for the upside, looking for the value, looking for the players that should have been taken higher, that have fallen to you, sort of no matter what sort of position they are. I think you have to have a minimum 3 quarterbacks, but if I've got a riskier player, a bit like Aaron Rodgers, if he's going to retire or sit out some time, then I'm tempted to take a quarterback with one of these picks. So people like Big Ben, Cam Newton, Jimmy G, who could play, quite a bit of the season. They're definitely in play here for me. I also love to go for a couple of running back flyers. So people like Naheem Hines, Kenyon Drake, I think has got some PPR appeal, and Tariq Cohen as well. When he's back fit, he's certainly taken some targets. And then in terms of wide receivers, I'm just looking at Paris Campbell. So Paris Campbell is going really, really late, and I've been able to pick him up in nearly every draft. So I'm definitely targeting him, and also Russell Gage. I think his ADP is catching up with Julio's imminent exit, but he's certainly got a big role to take on in Atlanta. And then other guys I like are Darnell Mooney. I know he's creeping up in the ADP. Denzel Mims is another one. So it's just wide receiver depth, and it's also people who I like taking shots on, who I think won't necessarily start for me, but next year or halfway through the season, their value could be greater than they are right now. So I can trade them away. I can flip them for some rookie picks. So people like Denzel Mims, who haven't shown a lot yet, that could potentially be the wide receiver 1 on the team, and then he could be taken a lot higher this time next year. So that's the sort of player that I'm looking for. So yeah, that's my approach around 11 to 20.
Yeah, I'm interested to know, Ali, what your strategies are when it comes to tight end. Obviously, none of us have taken a tight end in these first 10 picks. Which round are you looking at tight end? Are you going early in this group of rounds and looking at a guy like Irv Smith, or are you more happy to play that tight end chicken and fade tight end?
Yeah, so I don't want to play chicken with quarterbacks, but tight ends definitely happy to play chicken. Most of the drafts, I'm literally getting a combination of Adam Troutman, Blake Jarwin, Tyler Higbee, or Cole Kmet. You know I love Cole Kmet. So if I can pick a couple of those guys, then I'm really I'm happy to play them as my tight end one. I really am. I think Irv Smith, I was happy, but I think his ADP is now creeping towards what I think it should be. So the value's not quite there. So yeah, I'm happy to wait as late as possible, really late into the sort of 18th, 19th, if I have to, and just take a really late tight end. Even like Jared Cook, you get a season out of him, and he's going really late. So people like that.
Yeah, it's funny. Cole Kmet's name came up on the streamathon, and it was actually one of the streams where it was me and Matt hosted, and your name came up, Ali. I think Matt said that you're a big Cole Kmet fan, so it's well known, and I think he's a cracking guy to be taken in this range. But I do think it's an interesting strategy of taking a fourth QB, especially with a guy that's dodgy like an Aaron Rodgers or maybe a Deshaun Watson type. I just want to know about taking extra players at a position, if it's something that you do solely at QB, or if you'd also do it at other positions. For example, I don't know, tight end. If you've got Kyle Pitts, would you look to get 4 tight ends, or you're not fussed?
It's probably quarterback's probably the only position I'd do it. I'd make sure that the top running back would be the next priority. If there was a running back that maybe had an injury or was looking at a ban or anything like that, then I would probably back it up with a 4th decent running back and go a bit earlier than I would normally. But wide receiver, there's so much depth at wide receiver, I wouldn't bother there. And tight end, I'm just happy to wait as late as I can for a tight end, unless I've gone for a Kyle Pitts. But then if I do take Kyle Pitts early, I really am going to bank on him to be a really good high-end tight end. So it really is just quarterback for me, and then potentially running back in this situation.
Yeah, and just one last question as well on taking the 4th QB. You've got Aaron Rodgers. What's your thoughts on taking like a Jordan Love, like to have the direct backup? Do you tend to do that with your QBs, or do you tend to sort of go for backups of other teams? I know I was in a league last season. I won the championship in that league actually, and I just seemed to. Well, I had to get it in there, and I had like Drew Brees, then I had Taysom Hill, and in the end, I've got no QBs from those two now. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on if you do sort of back up your backups or if you play for upside.
A bit of both, really. I think in this situation, I don't think that the Green Bay Packers have got much confidence in Jordan Love if he was to start the season. I don't think he would produce it. He might surprise everybody, but I don't think he'd be in play. I did think about him with the risky pick of Rodgers, but it might be different for other situations where there is a secure backup who can come in and maybe has produced already. Then that might be in play, but not for Love in this situation.
I always think it's quite interesting because obviously, like you said, if Rodgers were to leave, you've then potentially got 2 starting quarterbacks. It's same as like even if you get a rookie like Mond, if Kirk Cousins was to move on, I think he'd still be a starter, and you're looking at having 2 starting quarterbacks. So there's potential to get a huge bump in value. Is it really a risk when you're at this stage in the draft? Probably not. So I think it's definitely an interesting approach to take.
Interesting if you've got Lance to take Handsome Jimmy as well. So speaking of handsome, we'll move on to the guy that's done some previous modelling.
I haven't, but yeah, at this stage in the draft, I'm probably now focusing on best player available rather than actual roster construction. Obviously, I do have a need still at tight end. Guys like I've just mentioned, Irv Smith, Jonnu Smith, Evan Engram, they've all got ADPs around 12 and 13. So I'm probably taking too early and then a late flyer on somebody like Gerald Everett, OJ Howard, 2 guys that I think have got potential to definitely bounce back and become a real solid tight end. I'm obviously still likely to keep firing at wide receiver. I believe that their path to fantasy relevance is a lot easier than the running backs you can get in this range. Just a couple of examples. You can get LaMichael Pirine at overall 199. A few picks after that, it's Paris Campbell at 201. I know I'd take out of those 2 guys. Boston Scott at 207, and then Tylen Wallace at 211. I think again, I'm taking the wide receiver all day with guys like this. So as I say, I'm favouring wide receivers over running backs later on. Quarterbacks, we just mentioned guys like Mon, Trask, definitely interesting players, guys that could see a potential big bump in value. We know how valuable they can be in Superflex leagues. So when you get into this later stage of your drafts, I think just taking a shot and trying to get that value rather than actually needing the play. You probably don't need a quarterback, but just the chance of getting that huge bump in value is something that definitely appeals to me. And then obviously any veterans that slide down to you in these range that you were higher on, you're obviously going to start grabbing them as well.
Yeah, Matt, you mentioned about focusing on best player available at this stage. Just want to get your thoughts on what's the minimum numbers of players you'd have at each spot on a typical 20-man roster.
Yeah, so minimum, I think you've got to have 3 quarterbacks in Superflex league. I think that's minimum. Running backs, I'd say 5 running backs. You could probably go 4, I guess, but we've been banging on about how much I love a running back, so it's got to be at least 5 for me.
I thought that were going to be 8.
Could have quite easily. I mean, that's minimum. It's definitely not how many I'm going to end up in my leagues with. But wide receiver, I'd probably go 5 again. I think at wide receiver, but that's obviously a minimum. I think you can definitely smash more wide receivers than you need to get running backs. Then tight ends, I'd say 3. There's potential maybe going 2 if you get one of the top guys. Obviously, if you get somebody like a Kelsey, Kittle, a Waller, I think you can probably get away with having 2. But if you're doing what we've done and we've faded position, I think you want to do like what Ali said. Just go for 3 guys. Just triple tap, get those 3 guys later on, and hopefully one of them sticks.
So at this stage of the draft, Matt, are you looking for guys that can fill in maybe for bye weeks or injuries, or are you looking for maybe some riskier guys that if you had to put them in, they might give you a 0, but then equally you could, if they could see the value increase later down the line, and then you can maybe flip them away for future picks?
Yeah, I'd probably say until about round 12, 13, I think you're still going to be able to get guys that can contribute, and you're going to be able to put in as bye week fills, maybe even potentially take that step forward and become a starter for you. But I think after that, you're targeting the other guys, trying to find somebody that's got a chance of maybe being a starter later on, but just shooting for the upside, really, going for rookies, year 2 guys, year 3 guys who might have underperformed. I think at that range after round 13, that's probably where I'm starting to look at those guys. I mean, you can get wide receivers, these guys that people don't have much hope in, but if just one of them hits, you've got a huge return on value. So yeah, that's the way I play it.
Yeah, I think both you guys have had a fantastic draft, better than me. So I'll wrap it up with my final thoughts on rounds 11 to 10. I had the best spot, but I've messed it up. I've done all right, actually. I think round 11...
Third best, Kev, I'd say.
Yeah, that's bronze medal, isn't it? Yeah, rounds 11 to 20, I think it's more about players and positions. I think you've got your core to begin with the exception of tight end. You've got to be double tapping tight end early in these rounds. You're looking at wide receiver depth as well. There's plenty of darts to be thrown. It's always worth considering what your actual flex spot requirements are. If you've got loads and loads of wide receiver spots and flex spots, ideally you want those filled with wide receivers. So that'll dictate where you go in late on in your drafts. I like having 6 running backs on a 20-man roster. I think you can get away with 5, which is same as you, Matt. I think QB-wise, you want 3, but I think if there is a super value you can't pass, there's no issue with you taking 4. You can always move these in season. I know there's usually one person in every league that takes 5 or 6 of these guys. Don't be that person. And then just in the second half of your drafts, take more shots. There's less consideration for ADP if you want to jump around. Get your guys, get players that you're gonna want to cheer for and that you're gonna enjoy cheering for. And it's always fun to have them boom bust players to give you those highs and those lows on a Sunday.
Absolutely. So who are you targeting the tight end in these later rounds, Kev?
So yeah, tight end 2. If I'm looking at tight end 2, I'm thinking guys like Blake Jarwin, Anthony Ferkser, and Gerald Everett. And then tight end 3, slightly different. OJ Howard, Chris Herndon, David Njoku. I think those last 3 is your tight end 3. I think they've all got fantastic upside. I think Howard and Njoku need to move to maximise their potential. They're both former first rounders with excellent athleticism. So I think the upside is there for them. And Chris Herndon, he had a strong finish to last season. It was only 2-game sample, but he was building up a bit of steam. So we're all going to get hurt again and get on the Herndon train.
Yep.
Yeah, I know you just took him in that starter painter, Kev, that we're in together.
I had to do it. It was about if you tight end off the board.
Yeah, so I'm just interested to know, is there anyone that you constantly find yourself picking in this grouping of the rounds, and if so, who and why?
Yeah, I mean, first guy, Darrell Henderson, he's running back 47 going in round 14. This is partly due to Tate Lock. I'm sadly to say he was my first ever rookie round 1 pick. So I think he's a really nice value. I don't think it's going to be 100% backfield of Akers. I think there's enough for them to both have games where Henderson can fill in as a bye week, and you've also got that upside. If Akers does get injured, he had an injury-riddled rookie season. If you've got Henderson with a big share in that offense, you're absolutely loving life. It won't make up for him being a former first-round pick, though, in your rookie drafts. And then wide receiver-wise, there's loads of guys like. If I had to pick out 2, it'd be Marvin Jones in round 15 and Antonio Brown in round 17. They're potentially going to be wide receiver 3s this season. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's the end for either of them. I just forgot Antonio Brown plays for the Super Bowl Buccaneers, doesn't he? No, I love that.
Super Bowl champions.
And I mentioned OJ Howard, bloody hell.
I know.
And then just tight end wise, there's loads of guys. We mentioned 6 there, but that's where I'm taking tight ends. There's loads. Jared Cook's another that got mentioned. Tight end heaven.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, that brings us to the end of the show today, where we've discussed the various strategies in Dynasty Startups from various different draft spots. So let's get us final thoughts on today's show, how it's gone, and what sort of advice we can give to the listeners on the Dynasty Startups.
Yeah, so for me, the biggest piece of advice for me is in Superflex, quarterbacks are king. That's always what I'm telling myself. You really have to nail that position. Otherwise, you're chasing and you're sweating in the middle rounds trying to scramble for a quarterback. So get your quarterbacks early. And also watch the patterns in the draft, because the quarterbacks and running back runs early on are real. They come thick and fast. And if you're not ready for it, you could really lose out on a guy that you really want. And also having tiers for me is the best thing for working out trades. So I can afford to move down 5 spots because I've got 6 guys here that I really like. So I'm happy to take. I know I'm going to get one of them. So yeah, have your tiers, work them out, and also look around at the guys next to you. You can get a feel for how they're constructing their rosters. So are they looking for a quarterback, running back, and try and guess what they're going to go for. Really, it will help you out in figuring out who you could get for your next pick. And then in the late rounds, just get your guys. Don't really look at ADP, and don't be afraid to take shots.
Yeah, spot on, Ali. Pretty much everything I wanted to say. Yeah, if you want that stress-free draft, just don't play quarterback chicken. Make sure you get those quarterbacks. Secure the running backs early. There's no need to go reaching for the wide receivers. I think you can get plenty of value. We've seen the amount of value you can get in rounds 3 and 4. It's incredible. So if you do have the opportunity to maybe trade down a little bit, I think you can definitely get away with that with what you can get in those rounds. And then once you get to later rounds, just focus on grabbing that value. Whatever falls to you, just focus on grabbing that. You can always then trade for need. There's no need to do all that in the draft. You can just get the best player available, get that value, and then make your trades after to sort your rosters out. And then just stick to the ever common fantasy wildcard motto. If you miss out on those big 3 or 4 tight ends, just fade the position. Just wait until the later rounds, and then just stock up and take plenty of dart throws later on.
Yeah, that's sound advice, gents. I think All I'd add to it is understand the scoring that you're in and the roster settings. I think as well, planning ahead 2 or 3 rounds, you sort of get a feel for what sort of guys are going to be there, and that really helps with your roster construction. It is important to have a plan A, but be flexible within your plan. Don't just stick to it that I'm going to take 3 running backs if your third running back is Devin Singletary, for example, in round 3. You don't want to be doing that. I think one important thing to remember, which I am guilty of, is that you don't have to draft your starting lineup today. I think you can draft a core of players and then pick the best player available. It ties in a little bit to the point about draft for value, trade for need. But you don't want to be short of QB and running back. It is easy to trade for wide receiver and tight end. Plus, if you're drafting with players you've been in previous leagues with in previous drafts, have a look at the previous draft boards and try and gauge their tendencies. I know I've done a load of Dynasty stats with you now, Matt, and it's amazing how you know what player's going to come next. And I'm sure it's the same with you seeing who I'm going to take.
Yeah.
You already know the pick before it happens. So it is hilarious, and it just gives you an insight to snipe and play the board better. And then lastly, just have fun. Take the guys you like. If it's in a league with people you know, give them some stick, pile on the pressure, have a bit of a laugh with them. It's a game, is it, in the end? So have fun with it and try and wind up people. If you know them, obviously, if they're randoms, don't be bullying them or anything like that. Make sure you're nice, but just have fun with it, and especially in the second half, just get you guys who you want.
This is Kev just making excuses for being horrible in all the leagues. He says he's playing, but yeah.
I'll just say
talking.
Yeah. A quick one that I missed out was to do mock drafts, because there's nothing worse than going in blind and then you don't know where people fall. The tendencies of Superflex drafts with the runs. Just don't be afraid to do a full mock draft or 2 to get a good idea of values and stuff.
Absolutely.
Smashing. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe or follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Wildcard. We also have our Linktree site on our Twitter page where you can find all of our podcasts and shows on YouTube as well. Please check it out and hit the subscribe button. Our next show is next week, Tuesday, the 8th of June, where we'll be running through the best players to target in each round of your Dynasty startups and why. Thank you once again. Have a good one. It's coming home, and we'll see you soon.
It's coming home. See ya.